Moving forward.
Right now, a future president could be running as a local candidate on your ballot. This person is vying to represent you, your family, and your community. Do you know what they are and what they stand for? Vote411.org is your tool for accurate and unbiased, up-to-the-minute election information on the candidates running in local races. Just enter your address to get started. Your vote is your power, the power to decide who represents you in 2022 and beyond. Get online, get the facts, and make your voice heard on Election Day.
Moving forward.
Hello.
Aloha, Jeffrey.
Aloha, Kawika.
How are you today?
Oh, good. Thank you. How about you?
Not too bad.
All right.
I get a little break after you to edit some of these episodes, and then I got a couple more this afternoon.
So you already had one this morning?
I had two before you. I'm doing about 4 to 6 a day. There's
wow.
200 candidates across the state in all the offices. So
Good for you.
Trying to fit everybody in.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right, man. So let's cut to the chase, man. Let's get right into the thick of it and let the people know who you are and what you're up to. Let's start it off simple. For those that don't know you, who are you and what office are you running for?
Jeffrey Lindner, and I'm running for the Kauai County Council.
Right on. So, before we step into you and your campaign, we're having a little educational bit about this with the audience because many don't know how to properly engage with their political officials and some don't know what they do. So, could you, from your perspective, give a little breakdown on what that office entails?
The Kauai County Council?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so they set policy for the island, and that would be legislative. They would legislate things for particularly land legislation. Basically, what you can do with land, the different types of the zoning. And all the laws and benefits for the people, try to, provide safety and access to public land. So it's a big responsibility. They have a lot of, it's important that they get it right.
That it is. So, before we get into the things that you want to get right, give us a brief history about yourself.
Okay. So I moved here in the mid 80s, and I had I was in India for a couple of years. I had a spiritual teacher who passed, and moved here with my young daughter and mother, and basically, have been here ever since. Back then, the land was, the sugarcane companies had just sort of started selling off their outer holdings, and I had a little money then, and I bought some parcels, and I did a ag subdivision back in the late 80s, mainly because it was on the North Shore, and Princeville was a sort of a second house, second, vacation house, and really not a community. And it just felt like, the community needed to expand. In the subdivision, I included a school because it's hard to get the zoning, with everybody has to agree. So that was pretty much the start here. And I've been, I was doing ag subdivisions pretty much since. So, I'm a businessman and I'm a land developer, and I guess, I have experience, direct experience working with the county and the results of their policies. And, I want to sort of give that knowledge to people and for people to really see where are we at with the housing today, and going into the future. Where does it look like we're going to go from the past policies, and what is the deal with agricultural land? They tried to protect it, but they didn't. They sort of failed.
Well, I think a lot of that rests with the whole deregulation of the ag department. It's barely getting rebuilt now. I mean, less than 1% of the state's designated funding goes to ag. I mean, I think that's something from the bottom to the top we should all be bringing to attention right now. I think that's where the lack of support you get there comes from, is because there's nothing worried about at the state level because they've given into special interests, so nobody has anything on the county level to work with.
Right. So when you speak of ag, what was it? Deregulation? What were you referring to?
Well, there's so much that the state's not doing or supplementing anymore that completely falls in the private market now. And we've kind of been beholden to mainland privatization, and there's nothing sustainably Hawaii in the equation of that.
Yeah, I guess, my perception is that agricultural land was designated back in 1959 as sort of land that they didn't really know what anybody wanted to do with, and that it was sort of restricted. It didn't really have. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I understand that the lack of density on the islands is a great thing, and it benefits it benefits a lot of people, but it wasn't planned. That was not planned as a conservation thing. It was that the five companies or families had controlled all the development, and the agricultural land was sort of left with very little development rights, and you had to go in and you have to. I guess although in Maui it's a little different, but on Kauai, there was in the government basically sort of followed, or I guess went along with the fact that it was a relentless sort of war against agricultural subdivisions, and that basically. And it's not like it isn't that way on Maui. Maui, basically, the ag subdivision was never made sort of a pariah and tried to prevent ag subdivision. But if you look on the North Shore, and then with my experience, I have considerable experience. They did one thing after they took away the open density. The open density was like thousands of potential dwellings on agricultural land. They talked about a moratorium. They did a general plan update in 2000. And a good example, if somebody wants to try it, you can type in Google. You can Google Maui ag subdivisions, and you can put in Kauai ag subdivisions. Maui ag subdivisions are going to have a list of all the ag subdivisions, and just a detail of them. If you put in Kauai ag subdivision, you're going to get the general plan update. That sort of talks against ag subdivisions, and things like taking away open density and the bonus density, and that basically we should protect it for farms and keeping wide open views and things like that, but they didn't, and so but in effect, what happened is that I don't think hasn't been an ag subdivision since 2000, and all that density. There's no farms. All the big chunks of property. There's no farms. It hasn't been cut up, and there's no dwellings because it's all been bought up by billionaires. It's like thousands and thousands of acres have been bought up, and so where did that go? That's gone. That's gone. Agricultural land, because they couldn't come up with a plan to basically and one of the big arguments was, well, these are estate farmers, these are, or whatever, these are, rich, estate farmers. And some of it has turned out to be true, but there are a lot of local farmers who were able to buy in at those prices and still have those parcels, and which they can pass down to the family. So my point, and the way it's going, there is not going to be any ag land. The ag land on the North Shore of Kauai is gone. It's all large, thousands of acres have been bought in, and then some of them have been CPR'd and hundreds of acres to wealthy people. And so, and their argument was that, there are these large parcels that are, being bought by wealthy people, but all that means is you could have had broken it up with less infrastructure. You could have put more density on it, right? You could have had more density, less infrastructure, make it more affordable. And, because large parcels is exclusionary zoning. That's the rule. And so there were a lot of things that could have been done and that weren't done. And the agricultural land is going. And then when you go down to Lihue, the other thing they did in 2000 was they changed the rule that you can only convert ag land to residential or commercial around urban land, right? Well, urban land, the guy that owns 40,000 acres around Lihue, which is urban, he owns 40,000 acres around it, and there's no incentive for him to do ag subdivisions if he can convert ag land to residential, commercial, industrial resort. So the fact of the matter is that the housing crisis could have been, the source of it was not looking at ag land as a appropriate, get the right mix for the local people. And there's still time because you have Kapa. You have local people who have 15, 20 acres. Those people can still, and residential can build like ADUs and additional, rental units and ag land. So it's basically the question is why has there been such an attack on ag land? And I think the local people, understand it. Or I think that they see that, it's nice that people are doing affordable housing, but that's not going to do it. And then they're talking about affordable housing that you rent. So Lihue is the state of the future is Lihue is going to be a metropolis, and there isn't much opportunity for agricultural people who worked on the plantations and had that agricultural land to ever live on it or to farm it.
Interesting. I'd love to extrapolate on this more in the future, but we've only got so much time. I'd like to know what else you have in mind for your seat. What lies beyond the ag and housing debate?
Okay, well, if you've lived in Hawaii, basically nobody can live in Hawaii and ignore the Hawaiian condition. And, and it's good now that the Hawaiians are getting some money to develop some of the homeland, with people have been waiting, their lives. And so I think that is a good indication of something, that something is starting to shift as well. But the sort of a root cause, I feel, is that the state and the islands, the counties, need to go back and they need to review what happened, or what about the Hawaiian culture, when initially when they came in and wrote the culture down and recorded it, that it needs to be reviewed, that it's more of a evolved culture. It's a higher philosophical culture, and that basically the status right now is that the Hawaiian culture was polytheistic, right? And so polytheistic means that, there's no sort of universal being, no universal consciousness. And how can you see, and that's wrong, how can you see the hula, how can you see the chants, you meet the Hawaiian people, have some big heart like that they don't have some universal wisdom inside themselves. And so that needs to go back. There should be funds spent to re-look at what and people think, oh, the Hawaiian culture is lost. It's not lost. They were connected. That culture is similar to the Vedic cultures. The chants to nature, the one in the many, right? There's the one in the many. Basically, the Hawaiian culture has been just the many, and there isn't any inner source has been lost. So that's an essential thing. I think that's coming. There's a lot of data out, a lot of cultural knowledge that's been developed, and the Hawaiian culture needs to be looked at in a different manner.
I appreciate that. I feel most of us Canucks kind of get the short end of the stick on bias sometimes, just because of us coming into America so late in the game. So we still get the pat on the head, good little savage routine sometimes, and it gets kind of annoying because we feel a little discredited. Especially having been, as well put together as we were until statehood. So I appreciate your want to integrate with our culture and respect it as a found member of Hawaii. So I really appreciate that. Beyond that, what else do you have in mind for your seat?
Well, I think that the ag or the land zoning, there's a lot of things that have come out of the zoning and the allowing agricultural land. So if you do an ag subdivision, then people, what they will do is they will put a condition on, well, we're going to give access to the forest reserve, right? We're going to, they can get things, for that, or we're going to give access to the beach. And so, being able to provide more things for the local people. I mean, even what we have now, as far as local people going to the beaches, I mean, they'll limit those beaches, and then those permits will be up. They'll be filled up for months after that. So, it's the idea that nature, that the Hawaiian nature, that the Hawaiians were in touch with the nature, and they sort of, get recognition for that there's information to get from that nature, and then also to provide back, not that all the beaches, are for the tourists and the industry. And also the I guess the density or the and the other thing too is, like, if the county is so they're concerned about the scenic corridors. That's the scenic corridors going to in between the towns and the resorts and stuff like that. I understand that, and you can do those scenic corridors, and you can hide buildings, but it should not be so weighted towards the visitor industry. But again, I'm for affordable housing. I mean, the state should give land to the, can make land. I think but the county needs to find housing from find housing from agricultural land, protect all of the waterways, protect the view planes. But people lived on this. People worked for generations on these plantations, and the plantations built houses for them. They built stores. They were somewhat taken care of, and that is, and the other thing too, people can make more money selling land to a billionaire than you can to doing an ag subdivision. So you can't say anymore that, it's somebody who's just greedy and just trying to make money. So anyway, but all the environmental stuff, I did a large renewable energy project on there. Just more facilities for. I mean, one thing is for the high school or for the middle school, they need to have more sports. I don't think that there's actually a paid for. It isn't funded, I don't believe, by the DOE, but you need to have after school programs for middle school, right? And there just needs to be more activity, and then obviously more jobs that are more diverse jobs, but a lot of farming, a lot of ag. I did an ag park. I helped do an ag park over here. So I don't know. I mean, just a more balanced economy, I guess, is the big picture.
Right on. Well, we're just about running out of time here for our first talk story, but I would like to ask you to come back on in about a month, and we can catch up and have a little bit more of a focused conversation about your subjects.
Okay, sure.
Right
sure.
on. So before you go, would you like to tell everybody how they can follow, support, and interact with your campaign?
Yeah, sure. My phone number is 808-652-2911, or they can email me at LindnerJI, LINDNERJI @gmail.com.
Right on. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so they can get in contact with you. Well,
okay. All right, Kawika, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mahalo for coming on today.
Thank
Aloha.
you. Aloha.
Rabbit Holes is a Manavakal production. This episode was produced by Kawika Hoke and Sarah Rodriguez. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast platforms to add our weekly episodes to your queue.